So in the last lesson, we learned how to graph and rewrite the equations of hyperbolas. Now we are going to learn to write the equations of the hyperbolas based on given characteristics. So just a quick reminder that our standard forms for a horizontal hyperbola is x minus h squared over a squared minus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. And then x and y swap places if you have a vertical hyperbola. So you have y minus k squared over a squared minus x minus h squared over b squared equals 1. So remember that h and k are always the center, as it is with every conic so far. And then A is the distance from the center to the vertices. And then B is the distance from the center to the co-vertices. So when you're given your graph, the first thing you need to do is find the center and then count to get A and B. So for our center, that is going to be where our transverse and conjugate axes meet up. And so I can find that just by drawing those lines and seeing where they intersect. So it looks like my center is 4, 2. And it looks like my A is 1, and then my B is 3. So that tells me that my equation is x minus 4 squared minus y minus 2 squared over 9, and that equals 1. So then we have our center of our next equation, and it looks like it is -5, 1, and it looks like our A and B are both going to be 2. So this is also horizontal, so we're going to have x plus 5 squared over 4 minus y minus 1 squared over 4. Okay, so for number 3, that is vertical. So our transverse axis and our conjugate axis. So it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3. So where they cross, our coordinates are, see, it looks like it is -2, actually wait, -6, -2. So that is going to put us at y plus 2 squared over, and then it looks like our A was 5, and then our B is 3. So over 25 minus x plus 6 squared over 9. And then that equals 1. So there we go. Actually, I'm going to move where I put those. All right, so now let's look at some given characteristics here. So on number 4, we have our vertices at 9, -2, and 3, -2. And then our length of our conjugate axis is 28. So again, since the length between our vertices, our x's are moving and our y's are staying the same, that tells us that we are horizontal. And so then we need to find the midpoint of these to find our center. So for the center, we will have 9 minus 3 over 2, and then negative 2 plus 2 over, actually negative 2 minus 2 over 2. So that is going to give us 3, negative 2. And so we have then to find our distance. So that is going to be our transverse axis. And so that is going to be 9 minus a negative 3, which is 12. So A is 12 over 2, which is 6. And then B is going to be the length of that conjugate axis, which is 28 over 2, which is 14. So since we're horizontal, that A will come first. And we will have x minus 3 squared over 36 minus y plus 2 squared over 196, and that equals 1. So then on problem 5, we're given the co-vertices, and so to figure out our direction, we have movement in the x's, and so this time we are going to be vertical. And even though we had movement in the x coordinates in the last problem, this is the co-vertices this time, and so you have to switch that direction. So to get our center, we are going to find the midpoint. So we have 3 minus 13 over 2, and then negative 9 minus 9 over 2. Then we have, let's see, negative 10 over 2, so that gives us negative 5. And then we have, let's see, negative 18 over 2, which takes us back to negative 9. And usually when that coordinate is the same, you're going to get the same thing for your center. So our center is negative 5, negative 9. And then for our B value, we're going to find that distance. So our conjugate axis, we have 3 minus a negative 13 equals 16. And so that tells us that B is 16 over 2, which is 8. And then our A is going to be 26 over 2, which is 13. So we have, for our equation, we have, see, we're vertical, so you start with y, so y plus 9 squared over 13 squared, which is 169, minus x plus 5 squared over 64 equals 1. And then for number 6, we have vertices and co-vertices. So we have coordinates for both. So we need to use midpoint for 1. And actually on vertices, if we look, it's our x coordinates that are moving. So we are horizontal again. And so for our center, we have, let's see, we will have 3 minus 5 over 2 and negative 3 minus 3 over 2. And so that will give us, let's see, negative 2 over 2, which is negative 1, and then negative 3. And so then for our distance there, so our transverse axis, we are going to have, see, 3 minus a negative 5 equals 8. And then our conjugate axis, and we have 4 minus a negative 10, which equals 14. So for the transverse axis, we have A equals 8 over 2, which is 4. B equals 14 over 2, which is 7. So since we're horizontal, we need to leave with x. So we have x plus 1 squared over 16 and minus y plus 3 squared over 49 equals 1. So then on number 7, we have coordinates of vertices and we have coordinates of foci. So we can go ahead and determine our direction. So we have movement in the y this time, so we are vertical. And then for our center, we have 8 plus 8 over 2. And then we have 13 minus 3 over 2. And then he has 8. We have 8 and then 5. So if we look at our distance, so our transverse axis, we have 13 minus a negative 3, which gives us 16. So in that case, we have A equals 16 over 2, which is 8. And then for our foci, which is C, we have 22 minus a negative 12, which is really 22 plus 12. And so that is 34. So C is going to be 34 divided by 2, which is 17. So to find the length of our conjugate axis, we are going to use the Pythagorean theorem and back up. So we can say that 17 squared equals 8 squared plus b squared. So 289 equals 64 plus b squared. So we're going to subtract 64. That gives us 225 equals b squared. So b is 15. So then we're going to write our standard form. We're vertical, so we're going to lead with y. So we will have y minus 5 squared over 64 minus x minus 5 squared over 225 equals 1. And so then on number 8, we have coordinates of covertices and of foci. So if we look where our movement is in the y's, this actually tells us that we're horizontal. And then we have for our distance, so that conjugate axis, we are going to have 3 minus a negative 5, which is 8. So b is going to be 8 over 2, which is 4. And then for our foci, we actually have that distance already given to us in that plus or minus of 2 square roots of 5. So that is our c. So then to find, oh, we also need to find our center. Almost forgot. So for our center, we have 1 plus 1 divided by 2. That's going to give us a 1. And then we have 3 minus 5 divided by 2. And that gives us a negative 1. So for C, we're going to have 2 square roots of 5 squared equals a squared plus 4 for b squared. Or actually, no, yeah, 4 squared. So that is 16 a squared. And then we have 2 squared is 4, square root of 5 squared is 5, so 4 times 5 is 20. And then we're going to subtract 16, so that leaves us 4 for a squared, so a equals 2. And then we have, since we're horizontal, we'll leave with x, so x minus 1 squared over 4 minus y plus 1 squared over 16, which equals 1. And there's our equation. So then for 9, we're actually given asymptotes on this one. And so what we're going to do is we're still going to find our center via the vertices. So we will have 14 minus 2 over 2, and then 0 plus 0 over 2. And then that will give us, see, 6, 0. And then for our A, for our vertices, or for our transverse axis, we're going to have 14 minus a negative 2, which that is 16. So A is 16 divided by 2, which is 8. And we actually could use our asymptotes to find our B. So remember that in your formula, your asymptotes are y equals, see, since we are, actually we haven't figured out what we are yet, we are horizontal. So our asymptotes are b over a. So since we have 5 over 4, and we know that a is 8, we just need to find an equivalent fraction. So to find b, we could just do cross multiplication. So 4b equals 40. So b equals 10. And so that gives us what b is. So we should be able to write our function from here. So we're horizontal, so we lead with x. So we have x minus 6 squared over 64. And then y, actually just y squared over 100 equals 1. And then with number 10, we have covertices and we have asymptotes again. So of course we're going to find that center. And so that is going to be 1 plus 5 over 2, then negative 1 minus 1 over 2, which is going to be 3 and negative 1. And then for our conjugate axis, that is going to be 1 minus 5, which is 4. And so for B, that is going to be 4 over 2, which is 2. So then if we look at our direction, we are moving in the x coordinates, but these are our covertices. So this means that we are vertical. So then when we look at our asymptotes, that equation is y equals a over b this time. So we have our b. So we have a ratio here of 1/2 and our b is 2. So we actually don't need to do anything because our numbers were not multiplied, or essentially we never had to reduce the fraction to get our ratio for the slope. So we actually have a right here. This lets us go ahead and make our equation. So since we're vertical, we'll start with y. So y plus 1 squared over a. So it actually won't be over anything. Minus x minus 3 squared over, and our b was 2, so that makes it over 4, and it equals 1. So then with 11, we have vertices, so we are going to find that center first. And we have 5 minus 3 over 2, negative 2 minus 2 over 2. And so that gave us 1 and negative 2. And so then for the length of that transverse axis, we're going to take 5 minus a negative 3, and that gives us 8. So then for A, that is 8 over 2, which is 4. And so since we have our eccentricity here, we didn't actually even have to find A, because our eccentricity is C over A. But we can use that C value to find B, because we can say 5 squared equals 4 squared plus B squared. So 25 equals 16 plus B squared. And subtract the 16, that gives you 9 equals B squared, so 3 equals B. So that gives us, and we are horizontal. So that gives us x minus 1 squared over 16 minus y plus 2 squared over 9 equals 1. All right, and then for our last question, number 12, we have our foci and our eccentricity. So since we are given that plus or minus here, that is our C value, first of all, and then our center is actually just these coordinates without the c. So then we actually have our a value because we have c over a. So a equals 2. And then to get our b value, we just need to do Pythagorean theorem. So we'll have 29, or we'll start out with the square root of 29 squared equals 2 squared plus b squared. So we have 29 equals 4 plus b squared. Subtract the 4, that gives you 25 equals b squared. So 5 is your b. And so since we do have the movement in the y's, that means that this is vertical. So we're going to lead with our y's. So we're going to have y plus 3 squared over our a value of 4 minus x squared over our b, which is 25, equals 1.